Hello, QLR 1000 students. I thought I'd record a quick video to go over some of the material this week. Let me share my screen and we'll get started. So, yeah, it's a fun module, a little less technical than Chapter 6 with Chapter 7, but very important, particularly in how you understand the audience you're presenting to and then develop charts and other visualizations that are appropriate for that audience. And so, if you're presenting to high level decision makers, for example, they are probably need the high level summary, perhaps even start with the conclusion and recommendations up at the beginning. They're they're time sensitive. They just want to know how much it's going to cost, what the answer is to the study, versus when you're presenting to very detail oriented, very analytical folks. That's a different type of presentation. So the PowerPoint flows along with that fairly well, giving a bunch of different examples. And one particular one that I'd like to share, if I can get to it, is the slope chart. And we're going to actually create this here in the video just to kick it off. And I think it's an important graph, particularly if you look at the visualization here on the left, it's not very clear. Even the timeline slightly inverted with 2016 being first and then going back in time to 2008. So I have a hard time really comparing these different um, you know graphs here between Missouri, North Carolina. And so the slope chart here is a much easier on the eyes, easier to see which areas are increasing and which areas are decreasing in this primary election. So what you can do is go to your data file here that I created out in Canvas and go ahead and download the Opening Horizons file, open it up. And if you want the detailed step-by-step on creating a slope chart, you can always ask ChatGPT, for example, or in the notes section on this particular slide, let me go back to it. It actually has the very detailed instructions down here in the notes. So you can follow along with that. Hopefully you're all saving these PowerPoints for a rainy day down in your future academic or professional careers when you're like, how do I do a slope chart? Oh, that's right. I can go back and find this resource. So it opened up, and what we want to do here, first off, is a couple easy steps to create this slope chart. Go ahead and select your data, insert, and what we're looking at is a scatter with straight lines. Still not quite the effect that we want, right? It's still a little hard to interpret this. And so you can tell it's putting both values for each, like this is Durango and then Gunnison together. Well, it's not quite the slope chart that I want. If you click anywhere on the graph and say select data, and then you go ahead and this cool little trick, switch rows and columns, the magic row and column button, and click OK. And wow, look at this. We have the beginning of our slope chart. Very exciting. So now what I want to do is select here, click the plus button here, and this is going to give me some chart elements. All right. So I'm actually going to be labeling the dots on the left with each of these areas. So I can turn off the legend. Having a legend and labels would be a very low data inc ratio. We're going for simple is better, a higher data inc ratio. So I'll go ahead and do that. I don't think we need, well, we'll leave on the axes. No, we don't need those. And we'll keep it at this. I'm going to leave those on. Turn off grid lines. No, I like it how it is. And then data labels. What we want to do here is come over to data labels and tell it to label to the right. Well, on first glance, it works well here on the right, but not on the left. They're overlapping. Well, that's okay, because what we're going to do, if I click this label, it's going to actually select both, and I don't want both. So double click means I'm only interacting with this label. So let's get rid of this here, turn off my chart elements. But what I want to do is I want to label it to the left, and I also want to put the series name next to it. Boom, that's pretty cool, right? Let's double click on this label again. And unfortunately, you do have to go through each one of these to create your chart. A little bit of work will pay off with a very nice looking graph. Oh, that one didn't quite fit, so I'm going to stretch it. And I'm going to double click this layer, series name, left, and series name, left. Now that's a nice looking slope chart. Very easy to read, very easy to tell the differences, much better than the first one that we did, the bar chart that we looked at. Now, what's missing? It's not a trick question, but what have I forgot to do? Well, I have had students turn this in with chart title as the title. So we probably want to go in and add it. I don't remember exactly what it was. We'll just call it primary voters just for time's sake. And that's it. We've got a nice slope chart. So hopefully that helped you with that. The rest of the slides, you can look through these on your own. I did want to highlight two in particular. So we've got this hospital satisfaction data. If you have somebody that has a very low analytical comfort level, meaning they're just not very data intensive, they just need a high level summary. Often you will use something like this column chart, right? It's very simple, just gives the average rating per department here at the hospital. But if you're going to present to a bunch of analysts and people that really want to know the detail, the best chart for this that I can think of is a box whisker. It gives so much information with just a couple simple clicks of the mouse in Excel. Here I've got some really valuable data. It's very interesting that some of these have a very high range from a 1 score, which if you ever go into Amazon reviews, or I was recently looking for somebody to fix a crack in my basement, I always go to the 1 and 2 reviews. Everybody's going to have a customer they can't satisfy, but in this case, they've had some high all the way to low with a pretty large range. Compared to this department in green, they consistently get very tight scores around the 4 mark. And you can even see a couple of outliers here for the thoracic department. So very cool. Go through the PowerPoint slide, please. Very important, helpful tips here. These are 3 elements that you probably want to incorporate into any presentation, not just one for this class. And a hint, we do have a final data analysis for the final project where you'll need to present the data in PowerPoint or some other type of tool. And you want to think about these. Credibility, perhaps have it very logical in terms of how you're structuring your presentation and your data. And often you can connect using emotion. So don't be afraid to put a puppy dog picture on a graph for shelter animals, for example. Really kind of pulls at the heartstrings there. And the last concept that I really hope you pay attention to this week is Freytag's pyramid. So in any presentation, even a paper you're writing, rather than just write 2 pages, no paragraphs, just everything's just flowing, that might be a good initial first draft. But this is a great writing style to have an introduction, a rising action, the climax where you just give, here's like the main answer that I'm trying to tell you or what I found in your data set, a falling action, recommendations, and a final conclusion. If you look down here at the bottom, it reiterates what I said, that it's not an exact structure. Often when you include decision makers that have limited time, you may want to start with your recommendations for the final cost, for example, the bottom line first, and then be prepared to answer their questions after that. So I do have a couple of examples here that you can read through. A poor choice of giving way too much detailed explanation up front, showing all your exploratory data analysis versus this structure here. I'll go back to this. Think of a movie. Did you recently see Captain America? Any movie typically follows this format, right? There's always the intro if it's a series and you missed the first 3 movies. You can get caught up to speed on who these characters are and their situation. There's a rising action. Captain America, there's probably a big fight scene against the villain or whatever. And then some falling action as they wind it up in a conclusion, or potentially leaving it open for a sequel to the movie. So I believe you get the point. I did give a couple of specific examples here, and finally one that I worked on for the city of Ann Arbor. For the police chief, we wanted to reduce accidents by reckless driving. That was initially what we thought. There's a rising action. I looked at 5 or 6 years worth of data and trends and by accident type, vehicle type, age, male, female, all different types of variables. Found that the biggest cause was actually not speeding, but distracted driving. It's against the law now. Please do not drive looking at your phones. It's just not worth it. And take it from me from experience. And the following actions, some recommendations that we have for phone use, and they actually had a grant, a couple $100,000, and they did a huge deployment of overtime, really enforced smartphone use. Traffic stops were 3 or 4 times more than the prior month, just because they were pulling people over, creating the awareness. And then perhaps we have a resolution that we need to implement new city laws, or again, increase enforcement with some grant dollars. So I will wrap up very briefly here with the homework assignment. So I do apologize. I had a slight error. I had called it Chapter 8 homework assignment. It was just a typo, but it was Chapter 7 here in the homework packet, just in Canvas. So go through this one. I'll give you a tip on this one. If I can only read the first sentence, and I already probably know the answer. A marketing segmentation group to data scientists. Are data scientists going to have a high level or in understanding, or just give me the high level summary or a detailed understanding? Probably detailed. And the next two, board of directors and public relations media release. So the public and a board of directors, what do you think? Do they just need a very high level understanding or a detailed understanding? Here we have some very detailed, very detailed down to the penny on expenses for university. Is this detailed insights or high level insights? I think I already answered it when I was going through it. With that said, you could easily put this into Excel, add another column that summarizes it by type, and probably get this down to a column chart with 5 or 6 columns versus creating a graph with all the details. So I've got a matching game here, ethos, logos, and pathos, and actually give you the answer. I'm trying to just reinforce the learning objectives and make sure you understand this. Try this one here yourself before scrolling down. See if you can match these 5 elements of Freytag's pyramid with the description. Pause, and then I scroll down, and here's the answer. And then lastly, I'm going to challenge you to do this on your own. Hopefully you do. Um, you can keep it very, very brief here, or write an entire 5-page screenplay. Brief's probably better for you, but tell a story, right? So a book, a movie, a play, anything that you've recently seen, and try to apply Freytag's pyramid to it. And in a future assignment for the final in this class, down the road when you're giving a business presentation, try and remember these 5 elements and work them in for a more successful presentation to your audience. So hopefully that helps, and I appreciate you all, and I will see you on the next video. Of course, reach out with any questions. Thank you.